Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be going over the creation of battle cry, battle orders, and battle command. Now, I know I've been on a barbarian kick for the past month and a half, but this is almost over, I promise. I've got the creation of the 18th level ability and the singer's abilities, and that's basically it. I'll probably do the singer's abilities in like 2 weeks after the changelog next week, but after that it's probably going to just be... It'll be a while. Anyway, before I get into the actual creation of the last 3 war cries, I want to talk about action economy. So I was looking through the barbarians' actions, what can they do as an action, as a bonus action, as a reaction, and there were some interesting things that came out. First off, there's only one bonus action. That is increased speed's ability to dash as a bonus action at 13th level. And that means that your bonus action is open for the entire barbarian. Now, if you're a weapon master barbarian and you pick frenzy, you're going to be using 2-weapon fighting. But if you're not doing that, then that means that you could go with, say, a polearm. Oh, okay, I guess the double throw uses your bonus action as well. But if you're not going there, which would be just this singer, or one of the, say, a whirlwind or a berserk barbarian. Anyway, then you could go with polearm master and use your bonus action to attack with the butt end of the weapon, or you could... potentially pick up a feat that gives you a bonus action. I was actually thinking using telekinetic would be really nice, because telekinetic gives you an opportunity to bump your charisma up, to round off that charisma modifier, bump it up by 1, potentially increase your modifier to the next level, and give you an ability to push people around the battlefield, which is kind of what you want to do with Howl and Taunt anyway. So getting an additional bonus action, 5 foot of movement, would be pretty good, especially being able to bump your allies out of danger. But in terms of actions, you have Howl and Taunt, of course, and then War Cry for the singer, and Whirlwind is an action, because the Weapon Master's abilities, Stun and Concentrate, are all part of the attack action. Berserk is part of the attack action, and Frenzy keys off of attacking as well. And the entire Throw Barbarian is just chucking weapons, so you want to use your attack action. So that means, Howl and Taunt are fighting for your attack action that you want to do, because you're a barbarian. That's what you are supposed to be doing. So bringing in another war cry or 3 as actions kind of cuts into that idea that you want to be an offensive force, but it does support the idea that you want to be a supporting offensive force. So when I was doing creating battle cry, I was thinking about, do I want this to be an action? Do I want this to be a bonus action? Do I want to change Howl and Taunt to be bonus actions, because that'll give you something to do with your bonus action? The problem with all of that is that it becomes essentially a free use ability, and that is very dangerous, because fear is very potent, and pulling people away from others is also very potent. So I don't want to have that as your bonus action that you can do every turn. So using Howl and Taunt as kind of the spice of your combat rather than the main dish, or I suppose a side dish, is where I think I want to land the war cries, and that works for battle cry as well. Now, one more thing before I get into the actual creation of what I did for battle cry, battle orders, and battle command. I was looking at the battle master fighter and the bard for inspiration, because I had considered moving the war cries into a cohesive, like not a single ability, but into kind of this all grouped together and grouping them together mechanically in the same way that Bardic Inspiration has like a single ability, and then you can use a die for that Bardic Inspiration, and some of the other Bardic subclasses allow you to use your Bardic Inspiration die to do different abilities. The same thing with the Battle Master. You get superiority dice, and then you can use those, expend your superiority dice to get different maneuvers. So what if I had a Warcry die, and that leveled up with you, and you could expend you could expend Warcry dice to get different effects. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. And I'm not tossing it out right now. Like, I'm not getting rid of that idea right now, but I am setting it aside because it's not exactly what I want for a few reasons. First off, the difference between Bardic Inspiration and the superiority die is pretty big. Because if you look at the Battle Master, it's a subclass. Bardic Inspiration is part of the main class. Bardic Inspiration is really, really simple. Bonus action, you get a die, expend it on any d20 roll that you make. That's pretty simple. But it's in the subclasses that the Bard becomes more complex, because now you can expend it in a bunch of different ways. The Battlemaster is already that subclass. They already have a bunch of abilities that you can pick from, but it's the subclass. If you're not a Battlemaster fighter, you don't have to interact with this ability at all. Now, I know a lot of people are like, hey, bring the Battlemaster features into main class. And I'm like, I can see that, but also I can also not see that, or see that not happening. I wouldn't mind it either way. But I like where it is because that specialization means that you're choosing to get that complexity. And so I decided to not do that for the Barbarian, because if I did go that route, he'd have 6 abilities, all that do completely different things, and the only thing connecting them would be that die. Now, if this was the subclass, if this was the Singer subclass, absolutely I would jump on that opportunity to make a Warcry die and to have you be that kind of Battle Master, quote-unquote, Barbarian. But for right now, I'm not going to do it. But I would love to see people's feedback on this. I would love to see people talking about this. So let me know. Drop a comment down and let's talk about this. So let's actually get into the creation of these abilities. I've spent enough time rambling on about things that aren't happening. So let's talk about what Blizzard did, or what Wizards of the Coast did back in AD&D and 3rd edition, because maybe we can draw some kind of inspiration from there. Well, actually, I suppose we should talk about what it does in Diablo first. Go to the original source. So Battle Cry. It's a fearsome cry that decreases enemies' defense and damage. It's an 18th level ability, has a fairly short range, and just decreases the enemy's damage and defense. So I had 2 options. Well, I had 3 options for this one. I could decrease my enemy's defense, which would be something like reducing armor class, giving advantage on attacks against them, something like that. Decreasing their damage, which would mean that they would have, say, disadvantage on attack rolls, or would be like actual damage reduction, perhaps, that they deal less damage. Or I could do both. Now, I didn't really want to do both, because at 9th level, that's really, really powerful to say that, oh, you have advantage on attack rolls against them, and they have a disadvantage on attack rolls against anybody else. That's pretty good. So I decided to turn to the crossover and see what they did. All right, Battle Cry. You let loose with a blood-curdling yell. Opponents within 30 feet who hear you must make a will saving throw, DC 10 plus half your level plus your charisma bonus. Those that fail suffer a -2 penalty and a -1 penalty to damage rolls for 2d4 rounds. So they actually did go through with the stat nerf on both offense and defense for the opponents. Now, 3rd edition has a lot of what are called floating modifiers. Just these +2, -2 bonuses just absolutely everywhere. And I didn't really want to do that. 5th edition tends to go with advantage, disadvantage, or adding an additional die, such as with like bless or something like that. But I knew that I really didn't want to do an additional die, because if I'm introducing dice, then it doesn't really play off of your charisma. So what I instead went with was this. Battle Cry. At 9th level, you can unleash a fearsome cry that strikes fear into the hearts of your enemies, making them easier to hit. As an action, you can have any number of creatures within 30 feet of you up to your charisma modifier. Got to get that charisma bonus in there somewhere. Minimum of 1. Makes a wisdom saving throw DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. On a fail, creatures have advantage on attack rolls against that creature until the start of your next turn. I decided to go with the offensive. You have some damage reduction with Howl, right? With Howl and kind of with Taunt. But I wanted to get that offensive benefit in there. Now, again, like I said, I could go for both the offensive and defensive, but I didn't want to make it, too terribly broken. But this is a way for the Barbarian to get a little bit of extra damage in there, kind of as that battlefield commander, running in, scaring the crap out of somebody, and having your enemies dogpile on top of it. Now, notice that it does say attack rolls, not just weapon attack rolls. So your spellcasters actually have a benefit as well. I could have gone with, on a fail, choose one, where you get either the advantage against them or disadvantage on the attack rolls, but that one also kind of got a little wordy and also had a bunch of memory issues, because if it's choose one, then everybody makes a save. Oh, I guess that might not be terrible. Okay, because what I was thinking is for each creature that saves, you choose one disadvantage or advantage against them. But if you make the choice first and then use Battle Cry, that might be a change I could add in later, which does give it an incredible amount of utility as damage reduction or as damage amplification, I guess, increasing your damage. But this is what I have so far, and I'm not entirely sold on it. You probably figured it out by now. It's just I like it. It works, but it doesn't do everything that I feel Battle Cry could be doing. So I'm just gonna let it sit there and then tweak it probably in a changelog at some point later, or just leave it. I don't know. Let me know. Now let's move on to battle orders and battle command. These two I am grouping together because these are the beneficial ones that you get alongside shout, or beneficial to your party. They're the party play shouts. So let's take a look at what they do first. Battle orders improves the maximum mana, life, and stamina of you and your party. And then battle command increases all current skill levels for you and your party. Now, battle orders is pretty easy to switch over into Dungeons & Dragons. The mana and stamina are basically pointless. They're ARPG mechanics, but life is life. Everybody has life in basically every game. So increasing your life could do one of two things. I guess it could be like resistance, but it's usually either increasing the maximum life, like with aid, or giving temporary hit points, like with any number of abilities and spells. So that one is I'm not worried about. That is something that I am just that's a given. Battle command, on the other hand, was really difficult for me to come up with, because increasing skill levels, it works in Diablo because there are those static points that you increase. And I didn't want to say, oh, your spellcasters can cast spells, increase the as if they were cast with a spell, a higher level spell slot or something like that. That didn't feel right. giving, I don't know, proficiency with all skills, or giving expertise in certain skills, or things like that. It didn't really fit. I mean, you have proficiency, and I guess... Ooh, actually, you know what? That would be a really interesting ability, is that Battle Command increases your proficiency bonus by 1. Ooh. I hadn't considered that. But that would also get into a ton of powerful problems, because that means that you have an additional use of an ability. That means, what happens if you use the additional ability and then the effect wears off, and then you use Battle Command again? Does it come back? We know that it doesn't stack because, creatures under the same effect, you pick one. You can only be affected by one thing at a time. But that means that your saving throws get increased. That means your attack rolls get increased. Or saving throw DCs get increased. It's all kinds of problems. It's an interesting idea, but it's not something I'm gonna implement. I've already created the abilities, so I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts on how I got to where I got to. But let's take a look. I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's take a look at what the crossover did. So I'm going to jump back into AD&D and talk about how they implemented Battle Command in the Barbarian in that original crossover. Battle Command. Slots 1, ability Wisdom, modifier -3. AD&D is a very different beast, and I'm not entirely sure if that modifier -3 is a good thing or not. On a successful check during any combat round, the Barbarian gives a rousing command suffusing all allies within 20 feet with the following bonuses for 1d4 plus 2 rounds. +2 to hit, +2 damage, and +2 armor class. I think that's supposed to be -2 armor class, because I think that's how they did it back then with Thaco, to hit armor class 0. Anyway, the Barbarian can successfully use this ability a maximum of once every 8 hours. So pretty much once or twice per long rest. Now that's Battle Command. That is just damage and accuracy and armor class. That kind of mashes Shout and Battle Orders and Battle Command all into a single ability, which makes sense because the Barbarian here has only a couple of abilities. But let's go to the 3rd edition one, Battle Orders. As a partial action, or kind of a bonus action, I guess, you can bark out commands to your allies in combat, advising them on how to overcome their foes. This gives a +2 attack bonus to each melee or ranged attack made by any of your allies within 30 feet of you until your next turn. So this is just increasing the accuracy of your allies' attacks, which is kind of what Battle Cry does. So, Let's take a look at Battle Command. As a partial action, you can call out instructions to your allies in combat, advising them on how to overcome their foes. This is sounding really familiar. This gives a +4 attack bonus to every melee or ranged attack made by you or any of your allies within 30 feet of you until your next turn. This ability supersedes Battle Orders. Well, guess what? That means that it's just Battle Orders, but better. I really didn't want to do this. I mean, I already have Battle Cry, and that gives advantage on weapon attacks against your opponents. So having something that increases your allies' accuracy is already something I'm doing. So I went in a completely different route. So let me introduce to you what I have done for Battle Orders and Battle Command. Battle Orders. At 13th level, your combat orders bolster your allies' resilience in addition to their defenses. When you use Shout, each creature you chose also gains temporary hit points equal to 4 times your charisma modifier, minimum of 4, for 1 minute. You can use this ability only once per short or long rest. This is what I decided to go with. Instead of making it an action, like I said with at the very beginning, with that action economy kind of being tied up, I wanted Battle Orders to do something different. I wanted to have it synergize with Shout, because if you look at it, Shout, Battle Orders, and Battle Command, they all synergize. Now, granted, it says, 5 seconds per level, whoop-de-freaking-do, but having the ability to, at the outset of combat, immediately call out your allies and say, hey, there's an arrow coming in, watch out. Shout bumps their AC, bumps their saving throws. Battle Order says, okay, your hit points go up as well. Now, it is only for that short or long rest, but that means that you don't spend action economy trying to make your allies stronger. I had considered doing it kind of as an action distribute temporary hit points, but I felt that was, one, a bit too powerful, and two, it's either way too powerful because you're adding too many hit points, or too weak because you're not adding enough hit points because it's reusable. I really didn't want to put you can use this charisma times per long rest or something like that onto there. So I just added the shorter long rest, which makes sense to me. So you want to put some points into your charisma, but not, a ton. Anyway, now, Battle Command is really interesting. Battle Command. At 17th level, the efficiency of your directions in battle have reached its peak. When you grant a creature temporary hit points with Battle Orders, it gains a bonus to its ability checks and attack rolls, and increases the DC of its saving throws by half your charisma modifier, rounded up. A creature has this effect until it loses the temporary hit points from Battle Orders. So this is essentially once per short rest for 1 minute, or until you lose the temporary hit points, you get a massive, relatively, bonus to your attack rolls and your ability checks. That means if you want to shove someone, your athletics check becomes much better. Your casters are going to love you. This is a 17th level ability, so it's got to be pretty powerful. But this is what I decided increasing the skill levels means. Your ability checks, that's a skill. Attack rolls, that is a skill. It increases your accuracy, not your damage. And then increasing the DC of your saving throws. That means if you cast a spell that has a saving throw. That means if you have an ability such as, Howl or Taunt, that also affects those saving throws. Now here's where I get a bit wonky on this. A creature has this effect until it loses the temporary hit points from Battle Orders. A single fireball is going to wipe them out immediately. I mean, at that level, you're getting hit with, a 6th level fireball. So that means that's pretty big, but it also disappears very quickly. Your frontline fighters, those hit points are going to be gone basically immediately. And like I said, you're probably going to be hit with an AoE that does a ton of damage. You have a dragon's breath, or like I said, a fireball, and suddenly all those hit points, they're gone. And so Battle Command does basically nothing. In fact, you could have your hit points gone before you even roll for initiative due to the way that Shout works. Like, it's just gone before you roll initiative. So this is kind of pointless. But the problem is, if it's too powerful, if I make it too free, I guess, then it becomes way, way too powerful. I guess I could say that I could tweak how long they have it, but the DC increasing is very, very rare. I mean, it is incredibly rare in D&D. It's not that it's not been done. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's been done. But it's very difficult to actually increase the DC outside of proficiency and outside of ability score increases. So I didn't want to make it too terribly powerful, but it's also a 17th level ability. So this one is one I like the design. I like it tying into Battle Orders and Shout. I just don't like the duration. So maybe I need to tweak things a lot more. Maybe I need to give it a bit more breathing room so that it lasts 1 minute. but you can only use that ability, say, once per short or long rest, so that it recharges with battle orders. Actually, it does tie into battle orders. You'll notice the battle command doesn't have a once per short or long rest because it naturally ties into the into the temporary hit points that battle orders gives. So that's balanced? ? But again, those temporary hit points are gone in the first couple of rounds. So I don't know. I have talked for quite a while now, so I am going to just end it there. Before I end it, I am throwing out a new subclass. It is not official content yet, but if you go onto the Barbarian and scroll down in the subclasses, there is the Horker Barbarian. Horkers in Diablo are like find item barbarians or gold find barbarians. So what I'm going to be doing is focusing around kind of the wilderness survival aspect. I would love to make this an official subclass. I'm just looking for ideas of what abilities I can put into there. So give me some feedback on that one. I would love to see how people interact with that. But yeah, I'm gonna close it out there. I've been recording for 40 minutes now. Anyway, you can find me at XenosFan2. That is XENOZFAN2 on Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.